Campaign against fake news takes international dimension as Minister of Information meets Nigerians in the United States.
First batch of Muslim pilgrims arrived Medina in Saudi Arabia for the 2018 Hajj exercise.
More political groups seek support for the re-election of President Muhammadu Buhari.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we discuss the conduct of direct primaries and its implications for the country's democracy.
Nigeria's democracy has been described variously as growing, fledgling, nurturing, or young, depending on who is making the assertion and the perspective being examined.
Now, the question that usually follows is, when will the nation's democracy mature against the background of the attitude of the political class and indeed the electorate, who to a large extent confers their love for democracy, but their conduct sometimes leaves much to be desired?
Yes, of course, Kingsley. Don't forget that the process and systems of democratic expression in the country is also continuously being fine-tuned to ensure that all the gaps are closed as much as possible.
And one issue that has continued to generate controversy is internal party democracy. Political parties are said to operate under circumstances that are not very transparent, and that the affairs of such parties are often under the overbearing dominance of a few persons, usually referred to as godfathers.
Godfathers indeed. And, you know, in specific terms, Kingsley, the method by which candidates emerge within political parties has over the years contributed to the heated polity that sometimes throws up unpopular candidates that do more harm than good to governance in the country.
Indeed, the most popular method of choosing candidates by most political parties in Nigeria at the moment is the indirect system, where delegates, of course, have the duty of voting for candidates for various elective offices in line with laid-down procedure.
Well, there appears to be a new shift, especially by the ruling All Progressives Congress, who have decided to try the direct voting method in selecting its candidates for the forthcoming governorship election in Osun State.
Well, this hasn't come without some reservations, as politicians, some of them, of course, clearly, are not in support of direct primaries on account of its disadvantage, just as many say that direct primaries will deepen internal party democracy.
So this morning, we intend to look at the direct primaries option and its implications on the nation's democracy. What are the pros and cons? Thank you for tuning in this morning to Good Morning Nigeria. And we are reaching you on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, Africa's largest TV network. My name is Kirian Umayo.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I also welcome you to the program, in the course of which we shall have a discussion topic on the issue of defections ahead of the 2019 elections. Plus, our usual complementary segments of business, newspaper review, sports forum, and others. Now, let's join our other colleague, Stella Inamiti, for the morning news. Hi, Stella.
Hello, Kingsley and Kirian. Good morning and welcome to the news. The national campaign against fake news has been taken to the doorsteps of Nigerians in the diaspora. The message on the need to discountenance fake news formed part of the minister's engagements in Washington, the United States, when he visited the Nigerian embassy.
80% of what you read on social media is fake. You see, when you go by the social media, the impression you are giving is as if Nigeria is at war. The impression you get is as if Muslims are killing Christians. The impression you get is as if there's an ethnic war. There's nothing like that in Nigeria. for many people, they do not even appreciate what this government has achieved in fighting Boko Haram. And it's only when you take these things in context, you begin to appreciate what the government has done.
Associates of President Muhammadu Buhari in Kano have sought the support and understanding of Nigerians for the re-election bid of the president in the next year's general elections to enable him consolidate successes recorded by his administration and complete ongoing transformation program that will make the country an economic hub in African continent. This was the submissions of speakers at a meeting convened by close associates of President Buhari in Kano to drum support for his re-election.
Many things have improved in terms of our economy, in terms of our capacity to be able to do many things that would have enhanced the life of the ordinary Nigerian.
The People's Democratic Party, PDP, Adamawa State Chapter, has organized a mega rally in support of former Vice President and PDP presidential aspirant Atiku Abubakar, which was attended by party faithful from across the country. It was said to be indeed a homecoming for Atiku Abubakar, who was showered encomiums by the people of the state. Meanwhile, the National Publicity Secretary of All Progressives Congress APC, Malam Bolaji Abdullahi, has described the People's Democratic Party as being excited with the possibility of hiding its irredeemably bad image under the heap of a new coalition after 3 years in the wilderness. In a statement, Malam Abdullahi said, if the PDP is not alleging wild conspiracies, it is threatening to boycott elections or announcing fake defections, but like the leopard, it cannot change its spots. He added that what President Muhammadu Buhari and Adams Oshomole, the national chairman of the APC, are doing, persuading aggrieved members not to leave the party, is what responsible and sensible party leaders would do. The statement challenged the PDP to face Nigerians on their own merit in 2019 and stop shopping around for supporters. First batch of pilgrims have arrived Medina in Saudi Arabia for the 2018 Hajj exercise. The pilgrims have been tasked to pray for peace and unity of the country. Nigerian ambassador to Saudi Arabia and Nikon officials who were at the airport to receive them advised the pilgrims to abide by the rules and regulations of Saudi Arabia.
The foremost is try to abide by the rules and the regulations of Saudi Arabia.
President Muhammadu Buhari has sent his commiserations to the victims of the Jos Market fire, which destroyed more than 200 shops. In a statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, the President says he is devastated by the scale of economic losses suffered by hard-working Nigerians who believe in self-reliance to support themselves. As trading and agriculture remains the means of livelihood of those hard-working citizens, President Buhari says every democratic leader would feel the pains of the victims of the fire disaster. He urged the local authorities concerned to take every necessary measures to forestall frequent fire incidents and the intervention of all tiers of government to alleviate the hardships. And that's the news this morning. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kirian and Kingsley after the break.
Thank you. Let's begin with a report on illegal mining. The federal government has expressed its determination to investigate allegations bordering on loss of over $50 billion revenue accrued from exploitation of unprocessed gold over the past 2 years as a result of illegal mining activities. This followed the adoption of a motion sponsored by Representative Johnson Agbonaima, which posits that Nigeria lost about $9 billion to illegal mining operations and gold exploitation in 2014 and 2015. According to the report, the current average price of 1,200 per ounce of gold in international market, which amounts to an unaccounted sum of $4,232,400 per day, and $1,544,826,000 per annum, considering that 1 kilogram is equal to 35.27 ounces going by international rates. Hence the need for the federal government to look into illegal mining to secure the solid mineral sector and ensure all activities are done within the purview of the law guiding the sector, as it accounts for at least 10% of national revenues. Meanwhile, Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Raji Fashola, has challenged the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission to step up its regulation of the sector and discipline any of the discos that fails in its responsibilities as regards metering and network improvements. The minister, who decried the poor service delivery by discos, said the total volume of electricity available for distribution to the country has remained at a low level of 3,838 megawatts, while about 2,990 megawatts could not be generated or constrained on account of inadequate gas supply and poor distribution infrastructure. And that report does it on Business News. I'm Comfort Amadou. Good Morning Nigeria continues. Many thanks for watching.
Thank you very much, Comfort Amadou, for the business package. Next for us now, we'll take a look at the front pages of some of today's newspapers.
Let's welcome Bayo Atoyebi, our newspaper reviewer. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Kieran. Good morning.
And
good morning, Kingsley.
Yes.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Bayo, good to see you. I hope you had a lovely weekend.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Well, we have the front pages of the papers this morning dominated largely by political stories. In fact, the three papers I have their lead on politics, all of it ahead of 2019. Let's begin by taking a look at the Authority newspaper. Authority says in its lead story, Buhari offers us juicy positions. And that's according to RAPC. With two riders, says President's action too late. Another rider says 5 governors and 30 senators to dump APC. Now, that story is on the front page, and then it jumps inside. Now, the Blueprint also has politics as its lead story. Blueprint says, boycott 2019 elections at your peril. APC replies PDP. 200 groups tackle OBJ and Galadima over Buhari. President and Oshomole Jitri, that's according to PDP, we would succumb to party's carrots. That's according to RAPC. And for the Leadership newspaper, still on politics, 2019, that's the kicker. APC and governors intensify moves to neutralize RAPC. With First Rider, they're having sleepless nights. That's according to RAPC. We'll leave APC with or without Saraki, says Baraje, and gang up against PMB dead on arrival. And that's according to Masari, who is governor of Katsina State.
All right. The New Telegraph also has the headline, bordering on politics. PDP signs MOU with RAPC with some riders here. Offers automatic tickets, 60% party structures to APC members. Galadima mocks Oshomole in Kwankwasu's house. Baraje, RAPC, we don't want APC's juicy offer again. Saraki Dogara, National Assembly members may defect on Thursday. Then Abio set to join APC. PDP summons emergency meeting. The stories can be found on pages 2 and 3. And just below the photograph on the New Telegraph here, the PDP can't survive without rigging, says Oshomole, the APC chairman. Says opposition party acts like vulture. PDP, you came to bury APC. That's what PDP says to Oshomole. And on the Daily Sun, I just said besides the nameplate, there's one striking one there. PDP consults on proposal for name change. Seeks advice from prospects ahead of NEC meeting. No enticement or intimidation will stop us, says RAPC. But you may have to come in here.
The heat is on for 2019, and the minority party, the People's Democratic Party, is reported by leadership to be holding its national executive meeting today. And some of the issues they are to consider are concrete terms surrounding expected defectors. Others issues also concern the waivers, automatic tickets being sold by some members to for their own political ambition. 11 aspirants who contested in the PDP primaries in Osun are also to meet with the national leadership. For the ruling All Progressive Congress, the papers report that the national leadership has been visiting the supposed RAPC members, mainly members from the National Assembly. Another paper says that a report has indicated that 7 conditions have been given by some members who are primed to defect from the All Progressive Congress, and they all center mostly around returning tickets and maintaining their seats as the designated candidates. Meanwhile, over the weekend, the primaries of the 2 major parties leading in the Osun State election of September 22nd held their primaries. Alhaji Gboyega Oyetola emerged the winner of the APC primaries held on Friday. The election was by direct primaries. Already, some members are already protesting. The People's Democratic Party also held its primaries on Saturday, and it was won by Senator Ademola Adeleke. Alhaji Gboyega Oyetola is the chief of staff of the Governor Rauf Aregbesola, while Senator Ademola is the incumbent senator representing Oyo West. The APC primaries, some contend, was alleged that the vote counting was asked for, but no, for the APC, it was a primaries that was accepted, but members alleged that they would have preferred direct voting. Similarly, with the People's Democratic Party, the runners-up challenged the election results. He was reported to have scored 1,559 votes, and he asked for a recount, but he claims it was not granted. So, controversy, yes, all towards September 22nd.
Now, let me take you back to the issue of defections. It seems that nothing is quite clear now with respect to defection, who is going where and how. You know, the past couple of weeks, there have always been rumors and other discussions going on here and there.
Permit me to use this analogy. This is the migration period in politics. You know, the birds, they have a migration
in Nigerian
period.
Politics.
Yes, in Nigerian politics. So once elections are ahead, 5 months, 6 months to election, naturally in Nigeria, that has been the pattern. You try to migrate to where your bread will be best buttered as far as electoral fortunes are concerned. So we have not seen the end of it, but in the next few months, people will make their final decisions about where they want to belong.
Where does it not go well for the nation's democracy?
Our democracy is evolving. These are the teething problems we have to overcome before we actually consolidate, particularly that none of our political parties have a specific ideological direction. What happens is that everybody goes where they think their interests will be better served.
All right, Bayo, thanks a lot. Let's return to the Authority newspaper. Above the nameplate of the Authority newspaper, 4 headlines there. Police dismiss 4 SARS operatives for robbery. That's page 32. Oyedepo declares 7-day fast for Nigeria's rescue. Page 2. JAMB remits 7.8 billion naira to federal government. Osun governorship election. APC forwards Tinubu cousin's name to INEC. That's on page 31. Now, also there on the front page, just the bottom half of the front page of the Authority, troops repel Boko Haram on Yobe. That's page 12. Family demands justice over slain Enugu traditional ruler. Page 4. Fashola accused of undermining market as feud with discos deepens. Yeah, that's on page 13. Board inauguration. I can't obey your directive, Ngige tells Oshomole. That's on page 5.
All right, the Daily Sun newspaper, the main headline is Army kills calls of Boko Haram terrorists in Yobe. The writer, Sharia Council gives tips on how to end insurgency. That story is on page 4. And just below the photograph there, we have other stories. MPO, BON, that's Bonn, media stakeholders reject press council bill and urges National Assembly to drop it. It's on page 39. And now, how FIRS, DPR were overpaid 837 billion naira for revenue collection. It's on page 2. And then Oshodi Apapa Expressway still blocked. Task force freeze corridor on service lane from Sanya Boat Stop. That's on page 43.
Yes, JAMB has turned in 7.8 billion to the Federation account. However, federal government is appreciative of the initiative of JAMB, and therefore government says that JAMB should remit 5.6 billion and retain 2.2 billion and use it for restructuring of the board headquarters to bring it to international standard. You recall that last year, JAMB also refunded money, and so far between last year and now, JAMB has turned in 15.6 billion in 2 years to Federation account. The question to ask is, where are these funds coming from? Students paying for examinations. Apparently, the examination is not an investment, but what JAMB is remitting is surplus over the administrative charges it has used, the fees that students have paid for. So it stands to reason, if it is asked, that the fees that students pay to sit examinations is reduced considerably. In fact, if it is reduced up to 50%, JAMB will still make the profit it's making. That is my thinking.
You are spot on. There's no doubt about that. But the original intention when JAMB was created in 1978 wasn't for JAMB to be a revenue-generating agency. But of course, if it attains efficiency and effectiveness in its mandate, that is to be noted. But JAMB to be remitting revenue as though it were customs tells you that there's something wrong with the mechanism of its charges. Yes. Why would you be overcharging students or candidates for your examinations? You're saying, okay, you want to use that to make the examinations more conducive. It means, as you rightly said, that if they reduce it by whatever percentage, say even up to 50, then JAMB will still be able to carry out its assignment. It is not a revenue-generating agency, and so always brag about remitting 7.8 billion is, in my opinion, unnecessary.
But I think the system just created that scenario. Otherwise, what Kingsley said earlier, that when it was created, it was not really meant to be a revenue-generating establishment. But now it has turned to that and is actually affecting even the performance of JAMB itself.
Yes, very many federal agencies are not set up for revenue generation. If you recall, there was a time the Federal Road Safety Commission was insisting on certain facilities and asking commuters to pay a certain amount of money to have some facilities fixed. The National Assembly categorically came and said the Federal Road Safety Commission is not set up as a revenue generation institution. So the priorities must be gotten right. Yes, there's a need for revenue. Yes, there's a need for tax and other revenue for government for its programs, but it shouldn't be this kind of what I want to call as blood money.
What you find sometimes is usually when the regulatory agencies have been established, and then there is a clause that entitles them to collect fines or other revenue. Their principal focus now shifts from core regulation to revenue generation. And then they lose sight of what they are supposed to be doing.
Because pressure is being put on them about internally generated revenue.
Absolutely.
Then there is poor understanding of the foundation upon which such establishments are laid. That is just the basic issue. Now, on New Telegraph, just below the nameplate, there are some stories. Well, the first one is that of JAMB. We are dying. Pay us. Abia teachers, pensioners tell Ibazu, that's the governor of Abia State, on page 36. Impeachment. Imo chief judge constitutes panel to investigate deputy governor. It's on page 38. And Apapa gridlock, of course, we read that in other newspapers. Task force removes 2,000 trucks. Page 7 has that story. That's it.
All right, Kyria, let me just take a couple of headlines from, a few headlines from the Blueprint newspaper. Blueprint, why state police bill will fail in Senate? That's according to the police committee chair. I did not finance Atiku's rally. That's Bindo, governor of Adamawa, details on page 7. Skulls killed as troops repel Boko Haram ambush in Maiduguri. That's according to the army, page 13. NYC orientation. MCAN expresses security concerns in Plateau. And then, of course, right at the foot of the front page, you have other stories that we have also read, including the kick against the Press Council bill by the Nigerian Guild of Editors and Nigerian Press Organization.
Well, the kick against the Press Council bill is a reenactment of what happened in October 2009. And that was when there was a public hearing called by the House of Representatives. At that instance, a committee, a technical committee headed by Prince Tony Momo was appointed, and there were representation of the Newspaper Proprietors Association, Nigerian Guild of Editors, Nigerian Union of Journalists, broadcasting organizations of Nigeria, and all the stakeholders. And an agreed bill was presented to the House of Representatives in 2009. The bill for public hearing today before the Senate is that same bill that was recommended by the Tony Momo Technical Committee, but I've had the opportunity of studying it. However, if the industry stakeholders, NUJ, Guild of Editors, have reservations about it, the essence of a public hearing is for everybody to come and let's build a strong institution that will give us good profession as far as journalism is concerned. Not all of us are satisfied about the state of journalism. Several journalists are owed months of salaries. Several underhand activities are going on. Quack journalists are earning bad name for journalists all over the place.
That is everywhere. Quack journalism is just everywhere. Okay, now let's go to the editorials for today, taken from the Blueprint newspaper. Vote buying as threat to our democracy. Now, last Wednesday, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, expressed its worries over the rising phenomenon of vote buying, especially during the July 14 governorship polls in Ekiti elections. So vote buying by cash and other material inducements such as rice, salt, wrappers, etc., has unfortunately been part of our electoral liabilities from time immemorial. Bio.
Well, the editorial also pointed out that the vote buying was not only prevalent in Ekiti, but it featured also in Edo and Anambra elections that were held earlier on. The factor of it is that it is a matter of concern. It happens. INEC seems to be hamstring, cannot do anything about it. But the main perpetrators are the politicians, and those who accept are the voters. How do we stop them? If you remember, only last week, the former chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Atahiru Jega, also referred to this same phenomenon. And what did he say as a recommendation? In the dilemma, he says, if they give you money, take it, but vote according to your conscience. It's neither here nor there. The moment you take votes, whether you vote according to the inducement or according to your conscience,
are you sure that
you have taken pocket infrastructure.
Are you sure some of them are not even asked to take an oath? You know, because taking of oath is also part of Nigeria's political system. Because of
in fact, the worrying phenomenon was in a few instances that were reported, and many parties were guilty of it, was that voters will come, take their ballot paper, and show it to indicate that they have voted rightly before they drop it. And it's supposed to be a secret voting.
All right. Well, clearly, vote buying and other forms of inducement at elections, these are offenses under the Electoral Act.
Yes.
And by the way, some of the persons who were arrested during the Ekiti governorship election have been arraigned in Ekiti State itself. Baya Twebe, we'd like to thank you for being around.
Thank you for having me, as always.
All right, so it's Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll be dealing with the direct primaries in political parties. Thank you very much, Timothy Yusuf, for that background report. Now, we have guests here with us in the studios and then two others joining us from our network centers. Rather, it was Soyoemi Ajayi that did that background report, not Timothy Yusuf, by the way, who is one of our regular background presenters. Now, let's introduce the two guests here with us. Dr. Unze Chidi Duru is a former member of the House of Representatives and was secretary of the APC Osun State governorship primary election. Honorable Chidi Duru, pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you, man. My pleasure.
Okay. And then also here with us in the studios, we have Abdul Rahman Abu Hamisu. So researcher, teacher, and public affairs analyst. Hamisu, pleasure to have you again on Good Morning.
The pleasure is all mine. Good morning, Nigerians. Okay.
And Barrister Timipa Jenkins Oponi Pere, member, governing board of the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University, Bauchi, is joining us from Port Harcourt studio. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Many thanks for having me.
I pronounced that name correctly. Perhaps if not, you will assist us in the course of this conversation. And from Kaduna, we have a political scientist, Professor Kabir Matu, Commissioner for Agriculture at Kaduna State. Professor Matu, it's always a pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Kirian.
Let's begin, gentlemen, this conversation by understanding the concept of direct primaries. What is the philosophy behind it, and how does it work? And I'd like Professor Matu to lead us here.
Thank you very much, Kirian. The concept of direct primary is born out of the desire by democratic entities to have full participation of members of their respective political enclaves in the selection of those who are to carry their flags, at various levels of political representation. The idea is that every card-carrying member of the party who, has the allegiance and love of the party at heart should be able to participate directly in the selecting of candidates that will represent him or her at, whatever election that you have. Probably is as a result of the numericity, the large number of, membership of political parties, that has, thrown up this idea of delegate representation, which is also, if properly, applied, is as democratic as a direct primary. But, the tragedy in the Nigerian situation over a very long period of time is that the delegate system has been so bastardly abused by several politicians to the extent that in most cases, at the end of the day, what the delegates will always come out with will not be the true representing, will not be the true wish, of the party members. So I think the idea of direct primaries, therefore, in this case, is intended to perhaps alleviate, because the issue of delegates is not only, very disturbing to the citizenry, to the members of the political formation, but is also becoming increasingly unacceptable even within the political elites that are supposed to be the beneficiaries of this delegate system. So after every election, you hear multiple definitions of what delegates are. You meet any elected official and ask him about delegates, and then he will tell you his own experience of what a delegate is. So the democratic means of selecting candidates or nominating candidates to any political contest is normally the direct primary election scenario. But where it becomes impossible, or where the delegate system will be more appropriate, I think the delegate system is adopted. But like I said, it's been so badly abused in the Nigerian process to such an extent that it's becoming imperative and necessary that we have to go through this system. And in fact, before Comrade Oshomole came up with this idea in Kaduna, we had it in April and May this year when we had our local government elections. Everybody thought it was impossible, but it was a very, very resounding success.
Professor Kabir Matu, we'll come back to you, but let's get the views of the other guests on the general philosophy underpinning the direct primaries. Oponi Pere, in our Port Harcourt Network studios, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are actually almost in line with what the previous speaker has said. The direct primary system, if you look at what is going across the world, the direct primary system seems to be the most favored. Now, if you even look at the history of Nigerian politics, you find out that even up until 1993, when the freest and fairest election was held in Nigeria, you find out that it was a direct primary system that led to that process. So the indirect primary, consequently, seems to be cumbersome, it seems to be elitist, it seems to disenfranchise, card-carrying members of the parties. So to that extent, I believe, and a lot of people believe, that the direct primary system seems to be most preferable. It seems to be more democratic in reality.
Thank you very much. Again, let's pause you and we'll return to you. Let's come to our two guests in the Abuja studios. Dr. Duru, I had said you were secretary of the APC governorship primary. You were a member, of course, of that. Before we get into the details of what transpired at the weekend in Osun State, give us, your own take on the overall philosophy underpinning direct primaries for the selection of candidates to fly the flag of a party at an election.
Yeah, thank you very much. I would want to say that credit, again, must be given to the chairman of the APC, Comrade Adam Oshimole, for once again bringing to the border an exercise that we've gone through in the early 90s that was considered to be a credible participatory manner of throwing up candidates of political parties in Nigeria. My view, and that was also lent credence to in what happened in Osun over the weekend, is that the direct primaries throws up a credible way of throwing up candidates of a political party. It is participatory. It is also involving, to the extent that the members of the political parties across the world, in the local government, in the state, take ownership of the candidate that would emerge from that process. So in my view, why it may be novel at this point in time is a process that we had taken over a period in Nigeria. So it is a process that I think we recommend, not just for party APC, but also for other political parties to take account of.
All right, now let's turn to Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu. You are a researcher, and that means you have studied what has transpired in the Nigeria's political terrain with respect to primary elections. Now, what's your take on the concept and, of course, philosophy behind it?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Kira. One of the things that has been happening in Nigeria is the penchant of the elites to always create avenues for abuse in whatever that is public. You would agree with me that the clash between public and private interest is not something new. It's something that has been there. But again, as a people, as a country, we must begin to evolve processes and procedures that solves our problems. For instance, we always want to copy in the name of international best practices, even if they are not working for us. In the aspect of even the cost of printing ballot papers, you have a huge amount of money that goes into that. But the philosophy of direct primaries is such that it involves everybody. Everybody is a party to what is happening. It usually gives credibility to the process. Now, historically, the devil is always at the level of accreditation. And that was what gave rise to this very particular standing principle, that in any ward, in any polling unit, where the vote exceeds the accredited number of voters, that very particular result is null and void. Now, you have a scenario whereby the total number of people, for instance, we witnessed it in this country in the past, where 2 million people registered to vote, 2 million actually voted. Nobody traveled, nobody refused to come to vote, nobody was ill. So 2 million people registered to vote and 2 million voted at the same time. So what does that tell us? Even today, what is happening with the card reader? Previously, you have to come for accreditation, and then you go home at a certain point in time. You come and then cast your ballot. During observation processes, you come to realize that, say, 300 persons may register, and then they will go back home with the intent of returning to cast the ballot. Then by the time the final result is out, you come to realize that out of these 300, only 280 actually return, which means there are people that, due to some factors, refuse to return. But in the case of direct primaries, if it is time for people to vote, you form a queue either behind the poster of the candidate or the candidate themselves, and then the counting is taken, and everybody that is present at that unit knows exactly the number of votes each of the candidate scores. So you don't even have to rely on the verdict of international observers, because the people themselves are now the observers of the process, and they take ownership of it, so that they know right from day one that anybody we're going to choose will have to bear with this person in the next 4 years or 3 years, as the case may be. But in the case of the indirect voting system, we all know what used to happen. In fact, the list of the list of delegates are always issues, because you have so many factions parading so many different candidates, so that at the end, delegates, I mean, so that at the end of it all, you don't even know which list is the authentic list of the delegates that were elected by the people. So for me, it is a way of taking ownership of our own peculiar situation and providing solutions for the world to copy from. The issue of the card reader is novel, but today Professor Jega is all over the world lecturing people on how to combat electoral fraud. I think these are the things that we need to be selling to the world, not copying people and say it's international best practices.
All right, Hamisu, thank you very much. We'll come back to you. I know there's some conflation of the issues while you were speaking, but I give the opportunity to the other guests to respond to that. Let's return to Kaduna. Professor Kabir Mato, we're still dealing with direct primaries. These are issues that pertain to the internal affairs of the respective political parties. We have 68 of them now. What, in your opinion, are the requirements for the successful conduct of direct primaries by a political party?
The first requirement will be a very integrated party register, because you cannot have per se a very democratic election if you don't have a control on your fingertips of the actual number of people that are supposed to cast their votes. That's the first issue. The second issue is you have to be a registered member. You have to be a card-carrying member of that particular political association. But in my view, carrying a card of a political party does not actually make you a potential, voter. Apart from that, there is also the need for every card-carrying member of a political party to also possess the permanent voter's card. Because if you are engaged in the process of selecting who the candidate will be during the election, then of course you must also behind you have the force of voting on the day of the election. So having a membership register of a political party without a permanent voter's card, in my view, means all work done is equals to nothing. So obviously, these three things are necessary. In the absence of the first, that is a comprehensive, register of members, then what you need also is to have the two. That is to have, the party registration card and then the permanent voters card. These two things can qualify you to do that. Like we said, right at the beginning of this program, that one of the most interesting things that, has evolved over time since 1999 to date is this theory of, delegate selection that in itself, is proving not only difficult but grossly inefficient in the way and manner we conduct our party primaries. So the direct, primaries, of course, you are going to have one or two skirmishes here and there. You'll experience one or two problems, but at the end of the day, there is going to be ownership, as far as that process is concerned, and whoever is coming out of it certainly will be the true reflection of the yearnings and aspirations of party members in that particular political constituency. So I think it's the right thing to continue to do. All we need to do is to identify the flows. Like I said, we did it in Kaduna, and it was also very successful with very minor problems. Now it has happened in Osun, and in fact, the constitution of the APC has clearly expressed that, selection of candidates shall be through direct primaries. And I think that's precisely what we started here in Kaduna, and that's what Comrade Ishomole is trying to make national. At the end of the day, all other political, a former senator once told me that a delegate is worse than a member of Boko Haram, because a member of Boko Haram is someone who throws bombs and kills people, but a delegate is somebody who collects money from different candidates and at the end of the day does not vote or does not even vote for anybody that gives money to him or her. So the direct primary thing, I think, needs to be perfected, needs to be corrected in such a manner that it becomes a standard that every major political establishment in Nigeria should be able to copy, so that at the end of the day, it reduces very tremendously the quantum resources that very powerful candidates that are elected into political offices. You go to Abuja and you sit for 3.5 years without getting back to your constituencies. And it is only when it is time for election, with the amount of money that you have accumulated legally and illegally, that you go back to your constituency and begin to prize votes over and above people who probably could represent, you know, the society much more better than you do. So I think it's the best way to go. It's the right direction. And I assure you that all things being equal, in a very few years to come, you will find that all major political parties in this country, I mean all major political parties, because when you see we have 60 or 70 something political parties, of which, with all sense of respect and humility, more than 2/3 of them are just, you know, what one very serious politician used to refer to as kiosk political parties. The major political formations will obviously adopt this as the best strategy and method of bringing up candidates. Nigerians themselves, members of the political parties themselves, will continue to insist that this is the way to go.
Right, Professor Kabir Mato, thank you very much. Let's go over to Port Harcourt. Ponepere, taking up from what Professor Mato has just indicated, as it is well known, a credible voters register is one of the requirements for conducting free and fair elections at a general scale. Now, it is also a requirement. I understand that we have lost connection to Port Harcourt. Once it comes back our engineers are trying to clear that up. We will, of course, return to Ponepere to get his view. So I'll just direct my question, therefore, to the two guests who are here with us in the Abuja studios. Dr. Unze, I'm saying there's a prelude, you know, to my question that voters register, a credible, authentic, clean voters register is one of the requirements for free and fair elections. And the same way that a credible membership database will be a requirement for the conduct of direct primaries. Do political parties in Nigeria have credible database of their members?
Yes, before taking the question, I would like to go back to what Professor Mato did say with respect to the instrument that members of the political party at the respective wards will require to be identified as members of the party to vote with. In the case of Osun, the party made it very clear that you could have either of your membership card of the party in your respective ward, or you could have your PVC. And that became the tool of identification. And once you present either of the two, then you're allowed to vote at the ward level. And the point you made is very clear. It is important going forward in these direct primaries that political parties have an authentic, credible, and verifiable membership database. With respect to the exercise in Osun State, every effort was made to provide that voter register. And it's on that voter register that the members of the political parties at their respective wards were identified with, and it's on the basis of that that they also voted. So it is important, and we cannot overstress the fact that a credible membership database is very important to have the direct primaries in each of the exercises that we're talking about.
So, Kieran, I'm wondering, the question actually surrounds one who is entitled to vote in direct primaries. Yeah. Some persons would ask, what is the utility of a general voters register generated, for instance, by INEC? It should be, was it an open season for all persons, you know, to come in and cast their votes? If I had a PVC, for instance, and I'm registered in Osun, could I possibly step forward and say, look, I want to cast my vote in the direct primaries? In the direct parties, is basically an intra-party activity. It is not an intra-party activity. It is merely restricted to members of the political parties in the ward, and it's not a community-based affair. There are people who are not members of a political party that are not registered with any of the political parties in Nigeria, but they are registered voters in Nigeria, so it does not include them. But the direct primaries we're talking about is simply an exercise for members of the political party to nominate their candidates to compete for any of the available offices, whether it's councillor, local government chairman, House of Assembly, House of Representative, Senate, governorship, or presidential candidates of the party. So it's essentially an intra-party affair. And
with that being the case, it is only registered members of the party that are allowed to vote in the direct primaries that affect the party. So with respect to the case of APC, you will expect that those who will vote are only members of APC in the respective ward that will vote with respect to those who they would like to choose for any of these offices I mentioned just earlier. The case of identification, we found in some areas where people have lost their membership card, but they have their PVC, and then the party in its considered wisdom said either of two could validate your as an identification for members to identify themselves. So if you go to your ward, and then on the presentation of the membership register of the party, your name is there. It's either you present your membership card, or in the alternative, you also come with your PVC, which will clearly have the same name as the name that we have in our party register in the ward.
I think it's quite clear, you know, because for you to be a member of a party, you have to register from the ward level.
From the ward level.
Right, and that register actually becomes the key instrument, you know,
Yes.
that determines who belongs to a party or not. As an intra-party, as rightly mentioned, I think it is followed by all parties. But at this point, let's return to Port Harcourt. Barrister Oponi Pere, Kingsley was actually asking you at the time, before we lost signals to Port Harcourt, about requirements for one to be eligible to vote. But our friend here has already taken care of that. But I'd like you to speak to this too, because you raised this aspect in the course of your initial submission. Now, looking at the nation's political voyage, let's start from 1993, when Professor Humphrey Nwusu of the then NEC brought about option A4, which is close to what we're calling direct primaries this time around. And you actually mentioned something like that in the course of your answering the first question. Now, would you advocate, I know that at that time, many people criticized the option, saying that it is primitive, right? And, you know, now, this time around, we're talking about direct primaries. Would you advocate for that kind of system to be brought to bear this time around?
Thank you so much for your question. Actually, you find out that the direct primary system, which, like you said, was adopted during the Professor Humphrey Nwusu's tenure as chairman of the National Electoral Commission at that time, as he then was. So I believe that going forward, Nigeria should progress towards a situation whereby we employ the direct primary, the direct voting system, so that democracy will be deepened, so that democracy will be more participatory, so that the concept of some certain delegates parading themselves as elites, the concept of some certain delegates, you know, being prone to corruption will be completely eliminated. So I want to say that the indirect primary system, excuse me, the indirect primary system is actually prone to corruption. It is actually prone to manipulation, and it is in fact elitist. So I think Nigeria would do well to gradually go back to the direct primary system. And now when you want to talk about the direct primary system, it means that the party structure, the framework within the political party must be very well strengthened. The institutions within the respective political parties must be very well strengthened, so that you have a credible database of members, so that you have a credible system where members are actually recognized and documented. And then, of course, if the party system, the internal party system and structure is well grounded, you find out that it will form the basis for a credible, you know, direct primary system. So, in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is that it is a very good idea for Nigeria to go back, particularly Nigerian political parties, to go back to the era of direct primaries. In that way, democracy will be more deepened. In that way, democracy will be more participatory. Because indeed what we have now is a kind of a pseudo-democracy where some delegates, sometimes you hear about delegates list, unity list, all manner of lists. So, you know, we are succumbing to those tendencies that actually led to the military back in those days coming back to power. So, in conclusion, I want to say that the direct primary system is actually the most effective and the most efficient as far as democracy is concerned.
All right, Opponent Perez, thank you very much. Let's get the thoughts here of Abdulrahman Hamisu. Abdulrahman Hamisu, fine, you've listened to the other three guests with regard to at least one of the key requirements for the successful conduct of direct primaries, namely a credible membership database. But the question, one of the aspects of the question I asked is as follows. Do political parties in Nigeria know their membership strength? And indeed, can they identify those members? Because I'm asking this question, if you recall, sometime in 2007 or 2006, when the PDP was registering some of its members, including Atiku in Adamawa, they said they couldn't register him there. So they now brought a notebook to the villa where they put his name, and they said, look, that name wasn't, that register wasn't authentic.
Yes. You see, things like this happen in an atmosphere of impunity, where rules are not followed, where whims and caprices determine the way forward regarding how you decide the fate of political opponents, and where there is disagreement. But of course, it is not something that is out of place. Where voter registers are supposed to be used, I bet you, if it is a part of the requirement for parties to participate in an election, assuming it's not intra-party activity, it is a national thing that, okay, part of the requirement for you to field any candidate is direct primary. Now, what that does is to return power to the people. Is empowering the people to be able to discipline their leaders as well as members of the same political party. So that equally make it imperative and expedient for political parties to do a lot of homework to get this voter register. But what has been happening is the fact that voter register has become more or less like a formality where people go to register, but then nothing is done with this voter register. So that at the end of it all, if you go to a ward to register, the next thing is the chairman will ask the secretary, please, can you provide the voter register? And he calls the publicity secretary, where's the voter register? Because it is not in use. But if it has empowered the people to participate, and they need to participate, then it becomes something that is part of the requirement for the party to be seen to be credible, to be doing the right thing, to get the names of their members ahead of any election. So that, as Dr. Duru mentioned, if you come to vote, your voter card or the PVC, your name must tally with the one in the register. So register becomes one of the first requirements of any social organization within the party, because it is key to the most critical activity of the party, which is selecting people to contest in an election. So, but what is happening is, as Professor Kabiru Mato rightly pointed out, I used to refer to some of these political parties as a briefcase political parties, where you have a party that has become NGO. The aim of the registration is not to participate in an election, but to position some persons to be able to take advantage of whatever one could gain during the process. Don't forget the fact that international NGOs usually support the parties in terms of building their capacity. So you have some people that register political party in order to target such a benefit. You have those that register political parties in order to endorse. So what they do is to come together, 5 political parties that have no voter register, and they sit in one hotel, and they said they've adopted the candidate of so party at a fee. So you can't rule out all of this. So those parties that are serious in terms of fielding candidate for election, if they really want Nigerians, because what is happening, even what even led to a massive victory for APC before the 2015 election was the credibility of the party primary process that decided to remove the roles of the political godfathers who goes about with this unity list that we're talking about, and then deciding to pick credible candidate that people could vote for. So what we're saying is it is even in the interest. What is happening is whether these parties are ready for it or not, if Party A is doing it and Party A is winning the election, it will force Party B and Party C to start doing the same thing. So what we are saying is empower the people because it is about the people. Let the people from the ward level decide who will be their leaders. So you don't just vote for somebody and the person runs to Abuja until at the eve of election and he comes back with all sorts of things from Maggi to clothing materials and then decide to buy the conscience of the people.
All right. Thank you very much indeed. Before we go on a short break now, let's return to Dr. Duru. One of the reasons the proponents of direct primaries have given is the fact that it will eliminate money politics. And of course, the latest one that we now know as a vote buying. You were in Osun State and you saw things for yourself. Now, yes. Does this direct primaries reduce money politics?
First, again, let me correct the impression. I'm not doctor by any stretch of imagination. I would like to say, before I go into that question, to answer the question you asked, do political parties have an authentic, credible voter register that they can vouch for? Membership register they can vouch for. I would like to say the answer is yes, because every politics is local. Political parties do have authentic membership register in their respective wards, in the local government and in the states. And that also was brought to fore with our experience in Osun State. The authentic membership register were given to the 5-man committee that was set up by the party to go and conduct the gubernatorial primaries in Osun State. However, the question is it usually updated? And that would probably be the next question, because the fluidity of it all, members do come, or citizens of the wards would come to update the member register. But because of the exercise, and they need to have a cutoff time, a date was set when there was a cutoff time for members to come and register within the political party. So the answer, yes, the parties do have an authentic members register that you can vouch for. I think it was one famous philosopher who said that to all forms of government, let fools debate. What is best administered is best. In this case, every exercise, whether by direct primaries or indirect primaries, is subject to one form of abuse or the other. And there's an element that we always recommend, whether it's direct primaries or indirect primaries. It depends on the process and of course, the structure of the party to ensure a credible, free and fair election. My experience in Osun State is that it was largely free, largely credible, and then we could also touch the pulse of the people that for the first time in a long while, they have been given the opportunity to freely decide who fly the flag of the party as a gubernatorial candidate. I mean, you'll be so shocked to go into a ward, you will find over 5,000 people lining up to exercise their franchise. And in a way, I would like to recommend that to not just to our party to adopt that as a means of throwing up candidates to fly the flag of the party in the respective offices, but for also other political parties, because what I also saw in Osun State is that despite the fact that it's also participatory, it became a tool of advertising for the party and mobilization. What then happens in the particular ward is that when you find people aggregating in a particular ward to determine their candidate, people will be asking, what is going on here? Are you guys doing something? Are the people doing something here? And then they will begin to hear that this is an exercise to throw up the candidate of the party that will fly the flag of the party in the gubernatorial exercise. So yes, it was free, it was credible.
Did you reduce money politics?
Essentially so, because I didn't see the vote buying, because there was no vote to buy. People queued against the candidates they wanted or their agent or against the poster and all that. The food that were provided in those wards, I understand, were provided by the electoral local organizing committee that we charge with the responsibility of conducting the election in those wards.
All right, Honorable Duru, thank you very much. Let's return to Professor Kabiru Mato. Professor Mato, earlier you were talking about the experience of Kaduna State in the recent local government election, that the candidates of the APC in the local government election came about by direct primaries. Is that correct? And if that is so, tell us, how were the direct primaries organized? What membership register was used by the party? And what was the point of departure, if any, from what the Osun experience has been this weekend?
I think the Osun experience actually took roots from what happened in Kaduna. When the governor insisted that we must, select our candidates contesting for councillorship and local government chairmanship through direct primaries, a lot of us thought it was rather a futile exercise. We thought it was difficult. We thought it was impossible. But insistence made us to walk round the clock, to ensure that at the end of the day, we achieved, the purpose for which, the whole thing evolved. First thing, like I did say, the constitution of the APC is very categorical about that. Selection of candidates for, any political position should be through direct primaries. And what we did really was to try to lay our hands on, the party registers, and where the party register was not available, we therefore returned to the idea of having party membership cards, those who registered with the party, and a proviso was also added there, simply because you're a card-carrying member of the APC and you do not have a PVC, does not make you a functional APC member. And so what we did was to say, look, you have you are registered with the party, and this is your card, and this is your PVC. Then we know you are an effective APC member, and then you queue, and then you elect whoever the candidate was. And that was what we did in the 23 local government areas of Kaduna State. Like I did say, it was not 100%, successful thing, as, we are trying it for the first time, and therefore we experienced some very minor hiccups. But at the end of the day, the entire members of the political party called the APC in the state became satisfied, and, that really they were given the opportunity and they exercised their free will to elect whoever the candidate that was to represent them, that particular election were to be. That is the number one success which was achieved. Secondly, also, the process itself threw up a lot of challenge, and it also convinced a lot of other pundits that, look, it's possible, by the way, to go through direct primaries. Just like Chiduduru was, saying the other time, it is very true that it is impossible for you to identify 10 or 20 or 30 delegates that you could put 50,000 naira or 100,000 naira and give to them. Okay? Yes, the cost is enormous because the electoral agency or the political party will have to spend, a lot of money in printing ballot papers and organizing, security and so on and so forth. But to me, that's money spent in the right direction, which is far better than leaving candidates, identifying a select few delegates that would determine the actual price that they were to be paid before they vote for any candidate. And like I said, at the end of the day, it becomes a futile exercise, because the fact that a candidate or an aspirant pays, is not a total guarantee that at the end of the day that the delegates are going to vote for that person. So I want to congratulate, the APC chairman, Comrade Oshomole, for building up on this particular constitutional provision, which we in Kaduna, started. And of course, it's a very big story. I don't like to go into the election. It is, it is a benchmark for any other state to copy. We had an election where the opposition party was able to, take some local government areas, free, fair, and credible. And after the election, because the process was very thorough. By the time we conducted the election, we were anxious that the governor should, swear in the local government chairman. He said, no, we're not going to swear in the local government chairman because the process was transparent. We're not afraid anybody who desires to go to court should go to court. And I guess that's why most states, when they do their local government elections in the afternoon and in the evening, they swear in their, those who are victorious at the election. So I think the direct primaries is the way to go. But again, let me sound this warning. It is not necessarily implying that the indirect primary itself is undemocratic. The nature of the Nigerian political scenery is what has completely distorted the process to the extent that it is impossible. People struggle as a matter of life and death in order to be elected as delegates because of the economic premium that accompany that particular position. So if it is becoming difficult, or if it has become so impossible for us to do elections through the indirect system, why don't you go back to the basics? All it takes is that the political parties will have to spend more. And of course, even the aspirants themselves, if they desire to spend money, then of course they know that they have a large volume of money to spend, which therefore reduces the possibilities of money changing hands during the electoral process. I think the process is fine, it's transparent, and I hope the rest of the elections, APC, I'm sure, will go that way. Other political parties too will have to, learn the process and try to improve and enhance, on the political strategy of attaining successes within the political system. I think this is a very important milestone in the political history of this country, especially election as the foundation of any democratic system, and the APC must continue to build on it. I don't expect that after Kaduna, after Oshun, that there will be no problems. There will be a lot of teething challenges that will have to be continuously encountered and addressed. That's how a system evolves. That's how a process comes into being. As it is today, anybody can say whatever he or she desires to say in condemning or criticizing what has happened on Oshun, but it's a landmark in the evolutionary history of the Nigerian electoral politics.
Thank you, Professor Kabir Mato. You rightly pointed out that there could be challenges because in the local government election in Kaduna State, we also discussed on this program some of the challenges that we experienced during the election. But by and large, it was well done. Now, let's return to Port Harcourt, where Barrister Oponi Pere is. Before we go to the tweets that we have, because Nigerians are beginning to react, let me put this question to him. Well, you have spoken globally in favor of direct primaries. Now, do you sense any possibility of that system being manipulated? Because Professor Mato did earlier on say that the indirect system is not unpolitical. It is political, but then it is easily manipulated. Do you sense that this direct system could also be manipulated?
As it's characteristic of every human institution, you find out that humans are very dynamic in trying to cheat a system, in trying to overcome what is actually put in place by the system. So what this means, or what this implies, is that the parties, the respective political parties, must be constantly on their toes to ensure that they keep, refining the process, so that at the end of the day, we would have a foolproof system that cannot actually be hacked or cannot actually be compromised by smart Alex. So what I'm saying is that indeed, there is actually no foolproof system in the world. But with time, over time, the actors, the principal actors in the system, must ensure that they are constantly on their toes. That's why we're talking about, the parties themselves. In fact, the issue of direct primaries actually throws up the supremacy of the party. If the party is actually strengthened, the party structure is actually strengthened, you will find out that they will be given a lot of free hand to ensure that the system is constantly being refined until we have a foolproof system. So indeed, what I'm trying to say is that there is no system that is infallible, but the actors in the system must clearly, demonstrate a capacity to ensure that the system works.
Oponi Pere, thank you very much. As my colleague Kirian indicated, we have some tweets that have come in. We'll take those tweets. A number of points, Kirian, have also come up from the contributions of our guests. Yes. With regard to the consequences of direct primaries as a factor in boosting internal party democracy and also enhancing internal party organization. That's part of the dynamics that our guests will have the opportunity of speaking to before we move on. Whether, of course, it's direct primaries will spell a death knell for godfathers. All right, this tweet from Festus Akimboyewa is as follows. Direct party primary is a game changer in our politics. It will bring democracy to the real people and give them a sense of belonging. It will also reduce corruption and bring sanity to our politics, as politicians will be compelled to meet and know the people they seek to govern.
Now, Aminu Uba Al-Hassan, though very exhausting, rigorous, primitive, and ancient, option A4 is still the best, most free and most fair way of electing candidates who fly parties' flags. Congratulations, Nigeria and Nigerians. We shall get it right.
Moses Hassan, direct primaries will definitely reflect the wish of the people. Delegates' voting outcome is mostly determined by state governors. I think whatever the disadvantage of direct primaries will ultimately supersede the advantage of delegates' primaries. I go with direct primaries. That's Moses Hassan.
All right, now, Omo Bolahon, direct primaries may have its flaws, but it appears the better because it allows for grassroots participation. People are directly involved in choosing whoever leads them. It brings the aspiring candidates one-on-one with those he or she intends to lead.
Jerry Uhuo tweets, successful direct party primaries will be an indication that the supposed owners of the party have taken control. It shows freedom and participation, which are the ingredients of democracy. Anyone opposed to the system of direct primaries isn't a Democrat. All right,
Adeolu Adewaju. It is a good development for Nigeria and Nigerians, but we all know that these people, that is those in charge of organizing, will find a way of rigging it to suit their already chosen candidates, as seen in Osho, APC, and PDP primaries.
Olowokiri Olajide tweets, now direct primary could have helped the most credible candidates of the two leading political parties in Ekiti to emerge. Direct primaries will also reduce money politics.
All right, Aminu Haliru says, actually, kudos should go to APC Chairman Adams Oshomole for adopting a direct primary in order to allow full participation of members of the party, and it also eradicates or reduces vote buying drastically from candidates.
And this is a very important one, in addition to all the other important ones that we have read. I hope our guests will listen to this as well. Kirian, Salihu Shehu is tweeting, is there any way one can register for more than one political party? So that when they are having their primaries, you'll be hopping, from one level to the other, just like politicians themselves defect from one party to the other.
It's become a business, just as one parent did point out that humanity, has a way of manipulating situations.
Precisely, Professor Mato Ismail will come to you, and then the other guys to speak to this particular issue. Let's run.
All right, now Sakiru says indirect method is choosing a strange candidate from the higher authority on people. If the party is popular and strong, it can bring any candidate from the grassroots to win.
And Dele Jack Solomon has this tweet. Direct primaries are very expensive and time-consuming, but they will force parties to clean up their party membership registers and improve their organization. And more importantly, it will get rid of the handful of delegates and few individuals who disproportionately influence the outcome of politics in the country. So those are the set of tweets that we are taking in the meantime. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we will take off from that aspect of saying party members defecting in the course of primaries, and then also party chieftains themselves switching platforms ahead of elections.
All right, you're welcome back, and thank you for staying with us up to this moment on today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. Well, there is one tweet that came from Salihu Shehu, which of course my colleague Kingsley, highlighted a short while ago, and that has to do with the possibility of someone registering in more than one party to enable him participate in all the primaries. And we had earlier raised the issue of how manipulative, these direct primaries could be. And now, let me ask this question to Duru, because you are a party man on the ground. Yeah.
All right. Duru.
Yes.
Yes, let's speak to the fact that there is a possibility of someone registering in more than one political party that will give him the leverage to participate in different primaries.
I have earlier said that politics is local, and the indigenes of wards know themselves. And I would be very surprised of the possibility for people to register in more than 2 political parties in their respective ward. It would be something I would find very difficult to believe. Where I come from, I know that people have a choice either to be in all the political parties that we have. But what I do find is that in the authentic membership register of the parties, it is always impossible for a political party to register more than, to register one person, and then that person is also in another political party. So it's something that I will find very strange to believe that do happen.
All right, let's go to Kaduna. Professor Mato, we would like you to speak to this issue with respect to the possibility of a person belonging to more than one political party and participating in the primaries of such political parties, considering that the primaries may not be held on the same day and at the same time, and then it could then become some avenue for, you know, financial enrichment, if you like.
Well, like Chief Juru said, I do know also that every politics is local, and you know, the very foundation of any political belief, in my opinion, lies very strictly on the attitude of people. No matter how much we have laws drafted and put in place, as long as we do not have the right attitudinal frame to be able to, you know, do things as, you know, they are supposed to be done, then we are, of course, doomed to be faced with very tremendous challenges. It's not impossible that you get that, especially now that, you know, political parties are engaging in direct primaries. Somebody registering in either 2 of the major political parties, so that in case some stipends are given during primaries of this political party, he takes and then he moves to that. That's not completely, you know, impossible. What I do know is very possible, and it's happening within our political scene, is that there's always, you know, renting of crowd whenever political rallies are taking place, especially for those political parties that have a lot of money. They have the potentials to raise funds, you know, charter buses, put fees, and then young unemployed people from across, you know, the 36 of the Federation are congregated and paid certain allowances to attend political rallies. That I know is possible. But as to the authenticity of one person belonging to 2 political parties, you know, at that level, I think is very, very minimal. Of course, what is more preponderant here is for the very highly placed political elites to want to belong, or to want to put their, you know, one leg in this formation and the other leg in the other formation. And this brings us to the, you know, very vexed issue of what people call defection. You don't see defection among the lower strata of the political establishment. You see defection mainly from those who desire to achieve certain economic or political aspirations, and they are finding it either impossible within this platform, and therefore desiring to shift to that. So the tweet by Salisu, in my view, speaks more about the upper echelon of the Nigerian political scenery, much more than you know, those who will go and vote during party primaries. It's a disaster, you know, that has continued to happen, and it speaks very negatively about the aspiration of the Nigerian political establishment to be able to firmly put in place political structure, you know, that will have the capacity to propel the nation out of its woods. Instead, most of these political elites are so selfish in their aggrandizement and desire to continue to control political power for the selfish aim of achieving economic benefits.
Thank you. And we're glad you just mentioned defection, because that's where we're going next. And I'd like Abdulrahman to come in here. One of the consequences of indirect primaries, or delegate approach to primaries, that has not yielded the required result is defection. Why the preponderance that we have witnessed in Nigeria over the years? And you know, some politicians, very key ones, shamelessly cross over there. The next time around, he returns, and all of that.
Yes. Well, what has been happening over time is that the political configuration in Nigeria is such that promotes the interests of the elites, not the interests of the voters. And that speaks to the disdain and contempt most of the elites have for the voters. You come to realize that during the 2015 general election, with the introduction of card readers, you found certain governors losing their bid to go to Senate. It is something that was happening for the first time. In Nigeria, once the elites are decided, they impose their will on the people. And that is why the masses will queue and vote, and before you knew it, during the transmission of the result are altered. What the direct primary does is to instill discipline, because power has returned to the people that's supposed to wield power in deciding the fate of their leaders. So if the interest of the masses is the same interest the politician that wants to defect is pursuing, there must be a time where these people will have to meet as a constituency, as a group, to say, we, the people, have empowered you as our leader to defect, because in this current arrangement, our interest has not been taken care of. But what we've been witnessing over time is an elite whose interest has been threatened within a political party, defecting. And then they go to a stadium where crowd has been rented to say that I'm defecting with 5,000 of my supporters. So naturally, what we're supposed to see is that politician with that 5,000 of his supporters. But the trick and the manipulation is that the viewers are given the discretion to think whatever they want to think, that those 5,000 number of people are within the stadium and they're together with the leadership. So what we're saying is, if the direct primaries will be used, and then a leader that has been pursuing his own selfish interests, using the name of the people. My people said, I have conferred with my people and they said I should move. Now, such a person will come to the realization that he doesn't even have any number he's referring to as his people. But the indirect primary usually give them this very particular power, because we're not seeing the people. Everything is done indirectly, and then their interest is taken care of in such a way that it encourages other persons to. Don't forget the fact that previously in this country, if you really want political appointment, all you need to do is to join a political party. Then you start creating internal division. Then close to the election, you defect to the party that you think was going to win the election. And once that party wins the election, you are rewarded with a political appointment, because it is assumed that you are the person that added the final weight to the process. So, but now with direct primaries, where even the politicians themselves are not even sure of their own fate because of what they've been doing, then that equally sanitizes the process, and equally the issues of defection. Because if you want to defect, you have to defect with the total number of people you needed to give you victory in the new party that you are going.
To the extent, Hamisu, that direct primaries is almost invariably it's an open popularity test, yes, of the aspirants, Kyrian. Yes, exactly. And so if you are defecting from that party, then the chances might be that you might not get the support of voters in that area. But Opone Pere in Port Harcourt, let's get your closing thoughts on this. Still on the nexus between credible direct, because direct primaries can also be abused if you do not have an authentic membership database. Credible direct primaries as a disincentive to carpet crossing or defection, and more essentially, what it does to internal party organization. If political parties hold their rallies, hold their meetings at the local level regularly and frequently, on the day of the primaries, and then you have a merchant who is coming with different membership cards, it might be easier to weed out such persons. Do you agree with this thesis?
I want us to note the following. One, there is actually no law in Nigeria preventing or precluding defection. or what is generally known as carpet crossing. There is actually no law. In fact, we had the celebrated case of the Attorney General of the Federation versus Atiku Abubakar, where the Supreme Court, while, deprecating the conduct of the then sitting vice president, actually said, well, he cannot be removed as vice president because he defected. So what are we talking about? Defection is, to all intents and purposes in Nigeria, it is still legal. Now, secondly, I wish to address the issue of a particular person, registering in two or more political parties for the purpose of financial gain. Actually, if you ask me, I would say, yes, it is possible, simply because in Nigeria, the party structures, the respective party structures have not developed enough, have not advanced to the point where the parties within themselves have what is known as peer review mechanisms, where their databases are networked, just like what we have in the banking system, where if you have your BVN, you cut across all the banks in Nigeria. So if, for instance, a particular voter, or a particular member of a political party is registered in one particular party, if we had a system of peer review, if we had a network system of all the political parties, maybe administered by the Independent National Electoral Commission, you would immediately detect that this particular person has actually registered in Party A, and so he cannot register in Party B. So we are yet to evolve to that stage where we have, proper systems, proper structures in place. So it is so unfortunate that in Nigeria, defection is driven by pecuniary gains. It is driven by, corruption. Unlike in advanced democracies where defection is driven by ideology. So to that extent, I want to say that defection, whether we like it or not, it will continue to hold sway in Nigerian politics. So the respective parties, now that we are moving towards the regime of direct primaries, the respective parties should begin to rise above, the sentiments and look at how they can actually integrate and work together, because ultimately we're looking at the survival of democracy. We're looking at the deepening of democracy in our country, regardless of which party is actually in power. I hope I've answered your question.
You have indeed, and that serves as your closing remarks too. And at this point, I'd like to thank you for sharing your time with us this morning, and Good Morning Nigeria. That's our friend in Port Harcourt, Timipa Jekinso Oponi Pere, member, governing board of the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University, Bauchi. Thank you once again for coming. And in Kaduna, we had Professor Kabiru Matu, whom we earlier introduced as a Commissioner for Agriculture. Well, he is now the Commissioner for Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs, but he was also Commissioner for Agriculture in Kaduna State. Thank you very much, Kabiru Matu, for joining us this morning on Good Morning Nigeria. Thank you. And right here in the studio, let's thank Nzechi Diduru, former member, House of Reps, and Secretary of the APC Osun State primary election. Thank you for your thoughts on the show today. And of course, Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu, researcher, teacher, and public affairs analyst. It's been a pleasure having you on the program. Thank you very much.
All right, let's take some of our complimentary segments, and the first of which is sports. Nigeria.